A massive red form writhes in pain, and a face as tall as a cathedral turns to you. A flood of sanguine fluid emerges from the mouth, and a horned figure looks at you. You look and see something older than the world look back. I'm sorry.
I approach.
I'm sorry.
What are you? What are you doing here? What is this?
My child, I fear I am too late. There are secrets they did not tell you. He opens his hand.
I rush to it.
His hand is the size of a marketplace, and you look, and in the center, translucent in ghostly imagery, you see a small tree, no taller than 10 feet. Ghostly light, translucent as blossoms move from it. And you see in ghostly light projected from the palm of this giant, this red horned giant.
What does this mean? What is this?
I'm sorry. You must look. He is coming. From behind you, a figure emerges in translucent white light. Could you do me the favor of describing what your husband looked like in life?
Oh!
He holds an amulet, steps towards the tree, and the blossoms from the tree blow in his direction. For a moment, his hair sweeps behind him, mixed with the petals of this flowering sapling. He falls to his knees, clutches his stomach.
I run to his side. I know this is a memory, but I haven't seen him in so long, and I want to see his face.
You turn to see his face. You see, he turns up to see someone else. Something's wrong. The image is shattered in a searing burst of light. Another figure, tall as a mountain. All of the light, all of the fire is but a shadow in the face of the dawn. You see a gleaming golden figure land with one colossal foot on the throat of this horned figure, press him further into the rubble of Avalier. And you see the horned figure looks to you and cries out.
His hands are still out?
You stand now in the palm of his hand.
I reach down and I touch it.
You see the figure. You do. You feel a pulse. You feel warm blood flowing through this giant.
Oh.
You look up. The face of the being above you is no face. There is no warmth to the eyes. You see the pitiless, featureless glare of the sun itself.
I look up at its face. Is it looking down in my direction?
It turns down to look at you.
Turn your eyes from this sinner. He is beyond redemption.
What has he done?
He has betrayed his kin.
You see the horned figure turns to you and says, "It's all right. It's all right. Just ask yourself, Xerxes. Whom did we betray?"
No.
And he...
Stop!
Boom! You hold your hand, and as you hold it up, the light of the sun leaves and is abjured. Boom! The horned fiend coughs, looks at you with the expression of a being that has just had its life saved and says, "No mortal would do this thing that you have done."
The sheer brilliance, the sight, the vision. To go to the druids of old Torah, Munda, those old Drashari, and to say to them, "Well, you listen here, you might be able to turn into a bear, but so what? I was going to take this city to the sky." and he wrestled with them, he did, and they said, "You're not going to split the city in half."
After all, it's all perspective.
Perspective is exactly the word.
Evandrin was in my dream, and in it there was a fight of some sort between, I can only say, the gods.
Oh.
The father of the dawn seemed to be trying to extinguish what I can only say was one of the betrayers. The gods don't mean much to me.
Good.
But one was begging me for help.
One of the gods?
The fallen one. The betrayer.
They're all behind the... They're not here, though. Not like the others that walk around. I know you know that. Just...
I know that. But I do remember something that was said. Gordranus.
Dragons aren't scared of much. Gordranus, those words mean... The connotation is an intense one. It's the kind of words that dragons would use to describe something they were scared of.
Okay.
With a 29 history check, an incredible history check, the name Gordranus comes to you from a very specific place in history. It's an ancient text from the Schism. This is a text from when the primordials. So there's a lot of stuff about the Schism in the Librarium Incantatum, right? Because the founding of Torah Munda has its root in the Schism, right? The Torah Munda was founded when the Emperor of Fire and the Empress of Earth, that were two mighty primordials, were laid low and sealed forever away by the Dawn Father under Mount Igora. And it was in the guise of that mountain that eventually the druids of the Drashari came and built Torah Munda, tending to this holy place, and over time those druids tended to it so well that other people came and sought them out, and then eventually it grew into a city, and that city eventually attracted wizards, and those wizards eventually took the top of that mountain and sailed away. But the name Gordranus from the early Schism, because in the Schism there were dragons fighting on behalf of the prime deities, there was a threat made in the epics of one of these battles during the Schism by the betrayer gods. It's attributed to different ones in different texts, but the text that at least, well, who knows, reliable, but the most detailed text that you remember from your encyclopedic knowledge of all of the scrolls of your library and all the tomes therein, is that it's often attributed to the Lord of the Hells. And it is, and it was, Gordranus it's just a very specific wording that he said in the battle of his defeat in the Schism when he was sealed away, where he said, like, "Put me where you will, in darkness I will gather my shadows to me."
It's strange that you mentioned where the shadows gather. There was a crime scene that was reconstructed from Vasselheim. Some of the language and symbols that were used there were both celestial and infernal. strange to see both. Not my thing, but unusual.
This is recent?
Very recent. You remember of course, the matron ascended. Many have tried to duplicate.
Sure, yeah. We've told that story.
Yeah, there's usually just SpaghettiOs all over the wall.
This is of the heavens themselves. This is the bow of a solar. 12 feet in length. Pure celestial gold.
Something deeper and older and more profound than a spell happened. You know for a fact that nothing Vespin Chloris did or ever could have done what happened to this. So the question that your mind immediately goes to is, Vespin didn't do this, so who did? Because when he tried whatever he tried, perhaps very quickly there was someone or something else in the room with him. And its mere presence took the weapon of one of the heaven's mightiest warriors and shattered it without effort.
Announcing the champion of the Matron of Ravens, Pervan Sul!
Shut your fucking mouth, Brennan Lee Mulligan!
So he's a guest of a member of the Silver Ring, Magistrate Hollow.
Or this is the Dean Lycretia Hollow.
Jean Lycretia Hollow.
Oh, yes.
Dean Lycretia, and what is their area?
Necromancy.
They are the Dean of the Throne of Necromancy.
Okay, well, of course, that would be the one to invite him.
Many long years have passed in the service of the Raven Queen, my mistress. I have come to speak on matters divine to the Septarian.
Oh.
Of course you have.
Magister Cormorant speaks up, and you see he says, Champion Pervan, and you see Pervan looks over and says, you may refer to me simply as Champion.
Oh my god.
And you see that he says, I think it quite telling that you should know that our first knight, Xerxes, is a wielder of divine magic with no devotion to any deity to speak of. He has mastered the ability to call upon the divine simply as a champion of the people of Avalier. And you see, Lycretia Hollow looks over at you, Patia, and says, it is so striking, champion, that the matron of ravens ascended to the heights of divinity, but saw fit to, of course, erase her magical research. We live in an age in which knowledge, as our Keeper of Scrolls can attest to, is shared. Seems rather interesting that the greatest arcane achievement of the age would be erased. Feels somehow not in the spirit of the age. And you see he turns and walks away, and you hear Dean Hollow call out, "She is still one of us, though, is she not?" And he stops here. Says, "She was one of us. She does remember from whence she came. It is not their world any longer. Why would she not welcome us behind her? I fear you make your home in a nest of vipers, gentlemen. I cannot speak highly of my experience thus far in the City of Crowns."
Well, you're mistaken at least on one count. This is not my home.
It is the belief of my mistress that something very reckless may have been attempted. Many have sought to recreate the miracle of my mistress's ascension. Foolishly, and it has ended poorly for them all, or at least for those powerful enough to begin what they could not finish. It is my belief, based on the counsel of my goddess, the Archmage Chloris attempted something wholly different. Not a recreation, but something new. Something much riskier and more foolhardy.
Riskier than an ascension to godhood?
The god of death that ruled over that domain, whose name my mistress sundered and removed from the fabric of reality itself. What complaint could he offer for his own demise that would not be hypocrisy? God of death, dying can hardly be said to be an aberration. It is my mistress's belief that Vespin did not orient his attentions in the direction of any of her or the counsel she keeps. By which I mean to say that she has already conferred with each and every one of the prime deities. None of them felt an attempt on their domains or any of their power, and yet a ripple was felt.
Aiming for a different sort of a god.
We can imagine no other directions. If divinity was sought, and none of my mistress's counsel could offer insight, I need not tell you there are precious few options left. I will tell you this, friend. Hopefully, I have not given this wisdom foolishly. You understand the implications of what I now tell you. If we are correct in what Vespin's focus was, then it is deeply troubling. The lack of sight into what may occur. Even more so.
Forgive me, champion. I must implore you to speak plainly. And not in riddles. What do you think happened? And tell it clearly, please, so that I too may be clear on it.
Every mortal mage who has attempted to recreate the Raven Queen's ascension has attempted to do as she did.
Right.
Ascend.
Yes.
To a prime deity, strike them from their throne and take their place, erasing their name. Vespin is a better mage than any other who has attempted, and we know that he did not commit that same folly. We do not know for certain what happened, but having removed what we know did not, leaves us afraid. You hear behind you, from the mirror,
Oh.
You will never reach the Wild Mother's embrace in time. Are you looking for something? You turn around, and in the mirror you see a shape. In mist. Swimming in the fog. In the mutilated face of Vespin Chloris.
There is something you recognize in Pervon. that as different as he feels he is from the mages of Avalier, he actually shares in common with them. And I think Xerxes feels this way, both of some of the archmages of the Septarian and beyond, and also this champion of the gods. Some ability that the mind, the heart, the soul are in control of what is real. And that if you do not speak it, it will not be. But some things are, regardless of if you are afraid to name them. Light, energy. One of the 3 ley lines that converges on ancient Torah Munda, on Cath Moira, which you are an hour or 2 away from being directly over. Ley lines are invisible. It's pure energy of Alexandria that flows, the veins of magic, the stuff of creation. Nidus, you behold as the spirit itself of the world is rendered visible, and realize you are standing in the bloodstream of the cosmos.
I think Nidus just hands tears falling down his face. It's beautiful! It's truly incredible!
I'm gonna move my arcane ward over him in that moment.
The arboreal calyx, which is an ancillary engine of the ley rudder, the actual sending of the toy took about like a fraction of energy. It was actually more efficient than you were planning on it being. But something about what you just did, the arboreal calyx sucked up almost 8% of the city's energy. Of the pieces of technology in the city, one of the ones you hate the most.
Yeah.
It is an engine that is part of the Drashari tithe. The replenishment. Avalier travels the ley lines of Alexandria, trading with cities and civilizations all over the world, collecting gold and resources and magic, right? Especially magic. Ether, raw magical substance, which is obviously the beings of this world don't use the term spell slots, but that concept of the magical potential held within beings, magical objects, things like that, that exists in this world, the understanding that raw magical power is there. And Avalier has this ability to extract and hold ether. That's not an accident. Way, way back in history, when Torah Munda was a single city, and Emir Porco and the mages of old Avalier found out the mountain was filled with broomstone and wanted to take it up. That city, Torah Munda, had been founded by the Gau Drashari, an ancient order of druids that tended the holy sites of the history of Torah Munda, or actually the mountain itself, Mount Igora, the ancestral mountain. This was very significant. It was a place where the Dawn Father and the Wild Mother defeated 2 of the greatest primordials of Dominus back during the Schism and sealed them away under the earth and was part of the ending battles of that Schism. It was a place where elemental magic permeated throughout, which the Druids tended to. Some of the earliest Gau Drashari were Genasi, and also that elemental permeation is what attracted a lot of wizards here after Torah Munda was founded. When the wizards came and said, hey, can we take the top half of this mountain and have a cool flying city, the original druids were like, no, you may not. And the replenishment was the concession of those wizards. It's not, in the modern day being in this ancient prequel series that we're doing, but in the modern day of the Age of Arcanum, the replenishment is sold by the archmages of Avalier as being a great act of charity. It's not a great act of charity. It was an obligation to the druids of Torah Munda, something that they said they would do to justify taking the top of the mountain. And the replenishment does renew the crops and bring back magic. There were also, in your knowledge, a bunch of important things the druids wanted to do with that magic. Now, cynical minds might say that's the Druids' cut for letting the top of the mountain go. But the Druids also said that there were really important things they wanted to do with that magic. So the Drashari Pact, also known as the Pact of Crown and Throne, right, was the original agreement between the Wizards and the Druids. Crown and Throne became Avalier, the City of Crowns, and Cathmoira, the City of Thrones, and it was all about how they would apportion this magic. So, you've been building out the etheric net for a long time. 25% of the city's ether is spoken for from that pact. So you got 75% to play with, 25% has to go to these things that were part of the original agreements. So the reason you don't know a lot about the Arboreal Calyx is that that's your utilities bill. Yeah. You've just always needed to send a certain percentage of stuff there. But when you look at it, you see that that calyx alone is more than 50% of the tithe. Like that engine is like this one engine that you know doesn't do anything that you know to be useful takes up a double-digit percentage of your entire city's reserves of magic. And as you are looking at the energy structure, you see that it flared up when you did this thing with your ley right, and it sucked up a lot of energy as you did that. And the last thing I'll say is, when you look for a, how would I put this? As you are looking for like an instruction manual, something, because you never had to interact with it before. Being an old piece of junk, at least it's reliable. It never needs maintenance. Yeah. It's just something that sits there taking up hard drive space and sucking up juice, being a kind of piece of machinery that you don't particularly like, but there's no instruction manual. Like, you're looking through your own like spell book, your like records preserved here in like crystal memory within your engines, and everything built by mages comes with incredibly explicit and precise detail about what they were thinking, why they built it, what they wanted it to do. And this one says, this is the amount of energy that you must apportion to the Arboreal Calyx during the replenishment. End of list. The Arboreal Calyx isn't as old as the city. It's 119 years old. 119 years old is the date of the last replenishment. It's a replenishment when the Drashari Pact was updated, which was a big deal back in the day. Now, this is stuff that's not going to be in your documents. This is going to be up, honestly, probably not. Paisha would have more about it in her library, but it's honestly outside of both of your home courts. This is magisterium stuff. This is magical law. So you would have to find a way on the eve of the replenishment to like bust into the librarium magisterium to like find out what's going to how this was updated. But you do see a record that this engine was built 119 years ago, which I will point out on a 27, some quick math on our master architect's part, is the first replenishment after the ascension of the Raven Queen.
That you have secretly developed a way for Avalier to travel to another plane.
Yes.
The entire city.
As a city.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's stupid to waste your time trying to become a god so you can ascend to another plane. If we can just all go there, then there's no gods.
It's the only thing that truly separates us from them.
They're not special.
What's wrong with this plane? Why can't we just be here?
Nothing, but why are we limited to this plane?
That!
This plane's great. Everyone's happy and successful and
Bored. Look at this distraction that they entertain themselves with.
I think it's lovely. Did you see the fondue?
I did. I saw it all.
Promise of Avalier was of exploration and knowledge gathering and growth, and I have dedicated my life. I've sacrificed so much. Others have sacrificed so much so that we could do more and learn more and
What do you expect to find if we were to go there?
I don't know.
Knowledge.
Did you know about this?
What plane?
Yes.
Any.
all.
Speaking from experience, other planes aren't that great.
I know you're from the Feywild, but we could...
Imagine the immense amount of resources. Knowledge, power, progression. We are simply limited here. The only thing that makes the gods what they are is that they have access to a whole nother realm of arcane potential. I have it on good authority that Aor is working on a weapon, something deeply destructive. I will not allow them to supersede us in any way.
The arboreal calyx takes its tithe, that stupid bit of energy we owe to the druids down in Cathwera. But it took more, and I don't know. I just have this feeling that either it's taking energy for someone or something that we don't know, or I wasn't privy to, which is bullshit, or it's some sort of stopgap to prevent someone else from attempting apotheosis.
You remember the first time someone explained apogee solstices to you. It's a woman that you knew as a child. You don't remember her name anymore because nobody does.
Oh my God.
God, you are fucking kidding me. You learned it from her?
Right, that's right. We learned it from watching you, Mom.
Mom?
A beautiful woman with raven hair who was one of the greatest wizards you ever met once told you what was possible on a given apogee solstice. The last time these solstices, there was an apogee solstice. There was some shifting of the ley lines of Alexandria. Ley lines, again, for those here, I think you would all know this. They move around the meridian of Alexandria. They are terrestrial by nature. They're the lifeblood of the magic of the world. To create and even hearing the name of the engine, an astral ley rite, something that could take something truly of the world and move it to another dimension. But it all comes together when Laren's talking about what's possible, because at an apogee solstice, if the ley lines are shifting,
Anything's possible.
anything's possible. The woman who told it to you mentioned it because there was she said she was working on something that in a few years' time might become possible. Apogee solstices occur about every 120 years.
20 years.
Okay. I congratulate you for your beautiful achievement, and I share that ambition and that wonder about those planes and that exploration. But I'm put off by this so-called champion of the Matron of Ravens, who's come here to warn us and couldn't even utter the words of the betrayers. Because he was scared. And that is precisely why I kneel to no god. Because the second you kneel to one of them, you kneel to them all. Something is here, it wants to threaten us, but we are the ring of brass. So gather your wits, gather your courage, gather your strength, and do the job that you know you need to do because this city needs us.
Oh, God. God.
You see the infernal on his body, and you see the exposed injury. You're a healer. You know how you have lay on hands. You know what it. You're one of the only people here that can cure disease. So you know that if this man was still alive, that his body would be riddled with tumorous growths all throughout. And they're coming from the things that he has carved into his flesh. Infernal runes. Clerics have fallen out of vogue here in Avalier? What does it mean to draw power from a deity? It's complicated. What is the clerical version of a wizard's study? We all know that clerics draw their power from their gods, but if the gods want power, why wouldn't they just grant their most powerful spells to any and all of their followers? Why are some clerics stronger than others? It's not arcana, it's not history, it's their wisdom. As clerics grow in a deeper understanding of the facet of reality manifested by their deity, they become more aware and attuned to those forces within the world and can wield greater magics. There is a limit to what is safe to grant a follower. But now, what if you weren't worried about keeping your followers safe? You look into this man's eyes, and a term floods into your mind. It's a term in Infernal. It means puppet. It's a human so devoted to you that it's not even worth magically dominating them or charming them anymore. They just let you into their soul. And the word is Knauth. It's a word that hasn't been spoken on Alexandria since the foundations of this world. The man you are looking at became a cleric of a betrayer. And he became a cleric of a betrayer looking at the speed of these growths maybe a little over 2 weeks ago. What would you do if you came back to the world after a long time away and nobody worshipped you and you needed to make some moves real quick? This is a mortal man that was forced to understand things that he was not ready for because his master didn't need a servant. He just needed a puppet.
Correct.
He succeeded. We need to proceed as though he was successful.
He was successful.
He succeeded with what? Bringing...
What?
Not ascending.
No.
Bringing back...
Some sort of betrayer god.
Yes.
We were locked away.
I don't even know what the betrayer gods are. Do we have a running tally of these fellows?
Yes.
What are they for us? Are they're like,
They're betrayers.
yeah, they're just like like
They're not here.
from history.
Yeah.
From history, well, they've been sealed away.
Okay, great.
I mean, you live in an age where the prime deities walk Alexandria openly, and their brethren. I mean, the schism is your creation. They're not creation myth, but the myth following the creation. You know that what happened was there was a time in which the prime deities, in a world of strife and chaos, sought to give divine magic to their children, to mortals. And the primordials that had existed in the world, the elemental titans that had existed in the world prior to the arrival of the deities, who, before the schism, there was not a distinction between prime deity and betrayer. No betrayal had happened. There were just the gods and the primordials. The gods fractured when divine magic was granted to mortals. The primordials rose up to correct that imbalance, and the betrayers joined the primordials against the cause of mortals.
In an effort to rule out the hope that Vespin did not somehow manually manipulate access for a betrayer god. Do we know in history, are there any instances of one of these gods breaking through into this plane, even if for a short time before being pushed back? An instance, an incursion.
I'm going to improvise an important piece of canon right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Watch as Lucretia, in the memory, well, now you're past the memory, but you remember the interaction that Xerxes and Loquacious described, which was their presence in front of Pervan Sul up until the moment that he vanished, because they did not leave his side until he teleported away from the city.
You guys changed canon.
You guys saved the future of Alexandria.
Heroes.
Anything that is achieved, he says, it goes against every virtue of this age to believe that something that is achievable by one is not, at least in theory, achievable by all. He went on to say, again, arrogance and hubris is a staple of the age. He said that it was his belief that a future ritual would not dethrone a prime deity. He said, after all, why would we wish to remove a force from this world that, while archaic and not necessarily where our vision of the future comes from, are nonetheless largely benevolent? Would it not make more sense to attempt to dethrone and remove something more nefarious from existence? So that's what you printed, because it was of magical interest to the Archmages of Avalere, right? You notice Loris's mask on the side of his face, and Dean Hollow. So Vespin is with his back against the window speaking, and you have a full view of his face and are able to sort of gather what he's saying. Reading his lips, you see him talking, and he's clearly reacting to something that Loris has just said. And you see he's sort of being very cavalier and says, well, of course, Loris, that's your opinion, and you're more than entitled to it. I don't take such a limited view of what is possible in an age of wonders. Obviously, if it were impossible, it wouldn't have already happened once. We're talking about how to improve on existing technology. The matron's breakthrough already opened the door for all of us. Look, you should know why these things are challenging. It's your fault in a way. And you see Loris says something you kind of can't see because you can't get a good eye on his lips. And he's like, oh, come now. You haven't read the pact? You know what the Drashari are about. You see that he then says, you see that there's a momentary confusion. You see there's a moment of confusion, and he says, he looks at both of them and says, the City of Crowns bears the Tree of Names. He says, the City of Crowns bears the Tree of Names, and says, oh, am I saying something you don't know? Maybe if you took a little less time flying that city and a little bit more time cracking the books, you'd know this. And he finishes his drink and walks away. You remember in your training, the Eyes of Avalere, the Tree of Names was given as one of the central artifacts of Avalere, something that the Eyes of Avalere must eternally guard. If its name were ever to be mentioned, that was an immediate indication that something terrible was, that anyone talking about it is talking about something incredibly profoundly important to the significance and safety of Avalere. However, that's a very old piece of training for the Eyes of Avalere, which is itself a very old organization. The Tree of Names, I gotta honor a nat 20. The Tree of Names doesn't get talked about as much anymore because it was protected 120 years ago by the Arboreal Calyx.
Yes! Sorry, cool. Damn.
Really?
The name, the Tree of Names, was protected, or the tree itself was protected by the arboreal cortex, or what?
Over it or around it?
Built over and around it.
Wow.
That tree is fucking important if it's not the core of something important.
There was a tree in my dream, in the palm of the Betrayer God.
You're right.
And as Evandrin approached it, he knelt, and the blossoms from the tree caught wind and fell on him. And that's what caused him. I think that's what made him sick.
So this is huge, because the thing at the center of the arboreal calyx, you saw Vespin Chloris talking about with clear knowledge in relation to rituals of ascension and godhood. Like, he was speaking to Loris and Lycretia Hollow about it in this party in Vasselheim 9 years ago.
But he's saying the City of Crowns, which is Avalier, bears the core of the arboreal calyx.
Bears the Tree of Names.
Yes, the tree is
In the fucking city.
So that's very critical. And immediately upon hearing it, you go, yeah, arboreal calyx is a wizard name. The Tree of Names, that's something older.
Oh my god.
That's something older.
Arboreal.
What you see is that the stuff that Magister, the late Magister Cormorant was interested in was your stuff. You see he's already pulled history and records all about the arboreal calyx, all about the Drashari, the Pact of Crown and Throne. All of that stuff's in his office already. And you can see that there was research going on here. You see a lot of this is about magical law. So it's about the nature of the pact. And you see that there is a scroll pulled from the Librarium Magisterium, not your library. This is the Library of Magical Law. And you find a letter composed on ancient 100-year-old birch bark. Maybe even, and you see the script is this like beautiful silvery ink on birch bark. And the letter portends of a conversation. You sort of can infer what it must be responding to. In effect, in many more words, the letter says, Honorable Magister, your assurances are taken in the most generous spirit possible. I do not distrust you, the person, for all people are children of Alexandria. But what I distrust is enchantment. The enchantment of a people and of their ways. The wizards of Avalier have proven time and again that they do not see limitation. They do not see the limitation of a city that will be borne aloft into the sky, nor do they see risk. I wish that I could trust you. I wish that my order could trust you. I wish that we could, in good faith, tell you of the tree's purpose. Sorrow fills my heart, for even if you kept your word, the wizard behind you, if they knew the nature of the tree, I can only imagine would see all that they could do with it and not what they could do for it. I implore you, the endless skies of Alexandria are yours. The wonders of your imagination are your only master. Please, simply tend for this tree and do not ask again. We cannot trust you with its secrets. Head Druid of the Drashari, the Temple of Torah Munda. date this letter to probably around the time that the Arboreal Calyx was created. And you see records here that after the Matron's Ascension, basically the city landed a year after that, and the Druids all came aboard Avalier and said, we need to update. we need to go. And you find records here in this place. Prior to that, the Tree of Names stood alone in the chamber of the Calyx. You see here the other bits of history having to do with Torah Munda, having to do with Old Mount Igora. You see there's like an ancient piece of ritual about the Emperor Raoshan and the Empress Kamort, which are the primordials that the Dawnfather and the Wild Mother defeated at Mount Igora and sealed away. You see like early druidic like prayer scrolls essentially to like the ancient base of the mountain. And all of that is unveiled to you, and it's all here in Cormorant's office. Aside that, and you're looking at this like ring of soot where a mage sundered their own arcane focus, potentially. Right. Velucia was a member of the Ring of Gold, one of the 14 apprentices. She was Loris's counterpart. She said, about 2 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago, there's no other way to put it. Oracles started going mad. Xerxes, it's just me. It's just me.
You're the last one?
Yes. The rest are being kept safe.
Because they've all lost their minds.
Safe from themselves.
What was it exactly that caused Valeria to renounce magic?
I don't know. It was an argument she had with her contemporary.
Loris.
Yes. So they were arguing. I don't remember. They were speaking to each other. All I remember her saying is, if these gifts harm us, then we should not accept them.
Can I? Okay.
She said that to Loris.
Yes.
Did she, while she was working on what she came here to help you investigate, was she keeping any notes anywhere?
She was the most able to soothe Carwyn, and Carwyn is safe right now. She is better than she was when we tried to have her come walk and rejoin us. Velucia worked on creating a circle of runes that we've moved Carwyn's bed into. Carwyn is not in the bed. You see a horned figure in red, bleeding and dying in the bed. The last time you saw this figure was the size of a mountain. But it's all right. I can't really die. So you don't... I'm not in danger right now. It just hurts. That's all.
What's happened to you?
Well, you came in before the Dawnfather could destroy it.
So that was real?
It's all been real. It's all been real.
I get closer. You know me. Then who are you?
Betrayer, sinner, most unclean. I am the Lord of the Hells. And
I don't believe in the gods.
lately, I don't much either.
Give me your hand.
And he puts a blood-soaked hand in your hand. It feels weak. It feels...
I heal him. I cast Cure Wounds on him. Shall I roll it, or does it matter?
It removes him from the dying condition. It removes him from making death saves.
The Lord of Hells.
The Lord of Hells.
The name they gave you. Or the name you gave yourself.
When you get to the table, and there's not much left but scraps, you take what you're given.
Why are you here?
I don't know. I don't know. I left where I was, and now I'm here. I don't know of Andrin, but he must have been a very good man because he's not in my realm.
Okay.
Let's get you cleaned up. What?
I have known only darkness for so long, and even before that, no one has shown me kindness.
That's gonna change. And that's a damn shame. This is your home. Don't you forget that. You belong here.
He sits up in the bed, and there are bedclothes here. There's fabric. If you wish to dress his wounds and clean him up, you can.
I will do so with the utmost care.
You do so with the utmost care. As you do so, he smiles. He says, well, while you're cleaning up a god of darkness and fire, is there anything I can do to repay the favor? This is not Alexandria yet. I don't know where I'm not where I was, but I'm not home
Here in between.
yet.
And you are coming. Is that it? Someone has done something. Someone has broken you out of wherever you once were.
The door opened. Yes, that's true.
And you walked through it?
Oh, the door opened more explosively than I can say. It opened and we all tumbled out. It was not a kind place behind that door, and the, for lack of a better word, pressure behind it was enormous. It was a place made to teach us a lesson.
It was your punishment. Do you remember what you've done and why they sent you there?
We came to a young world. We came to a world of raw, elemental wonder, of chaos and exultant passion, of energy vaster and more potent than anything we had beheld in the cosmos. We came here, and we began to shape what we could, what we dreamed. The primordials were here when we arrived. It was their world first. We arrived, and we began to shape. We offered our creations. I saw...
Will you do something for me, please?
Yes,
Will you kneel with me?
I will.
I want to hear everything.
He kneels with you.
I cast ceremony.
You cast ceremony with him.
Marriage?
Atonement.
You begin to cast atonement. As you begin to cast it, you see he looks, and I believe the casting time of ceremony is
an hour.
Is an hour. You begin to cast atonement. As you cast this spell, you focus in. He kneels with you and he says, we started to make our creations, and I did as I thought I must. I was a celestial. I was a celestial of light, and they were creating truth and love and honor. They were creating courage and mortal beings. They were creating choices and many of the gods spoke first. Many of the gods spoke first and long, and it was a long time before I spoke, and much had already been said, and I thought to help. I had seen the gifts of love and courage and truth and honor and sacrifice, and I said, these are the greatest gifts we could create, and we must make them matter. And I said, these will matter because in their absence, we will know deceit, and in their absence, we will know betrayal. In the absence of love, there will be viciousness. I thought I was expanding on a creation. I thought I was making something that would make the earlier work more. And then years passed and time passed, and the gifts I had made, mortals called them evil, said that they were wicked, said that they were wrong. And I said, well, yes, but that is the point, is it not? That and they hated me, and none said prayers to my name. And I turned to my kin and my brethren, and I said, does this strike you as fair? None of them spoke. None of them said a word in my defense. All were happy to watch as my gifts were not seen for what I intended them to be. And then the others decided to grant even more. Many of us were already hated. Many of us already were seen as something worse, something abominable. But those stories, those things that shaped that, they were aided or egged on or pushed forward by the others. And in that time of pain and sorrow, they then stepped forward and gave more gifts. They gave magic. The primordials, they were giving the ability to shape reality to the things that they had used their ability to shape reality to shape. We had already lent on the hospitality of the primordials enough. We had lent on it enough. And we stepped in and said, the game has gone on too far. The primordials rose up against them, and the prime deities, as they called themselves, stepped in to fight them, to double down on their overreach. Our promises were to the primordials, and we were called betrayers!
I lay my hand on his chest. Easy.
I have been burning
so long.
They used you. They did. And I'm sorry for that. I can help you. You say you know me? When the time comes and you step from this void into our world, don't you forget me. Don't you forget the kindness that we're capable of, because we're your children too. We are made of the same stuff that what you initially created. We come from the same thing. And if you remember the stories as well as you seem to, then you know that at some point you turned your pain on us. They used you and then you used us to get back at them. I have a son that's not of my blood, but that is my son. I met Evandrin when he was just an infant, and I held that boy in my arms, and I fell in love with him. I am his father, but he is not of my blood. And in that same way, we are your children. Please remember that. Don't take your pain out on us. Spare us. And I will help you. I will help you confront those that did this to you.
I don't give my word lightly. You have my word on this, Xerxes Ilores. Not for all the ages of the world will I forget you. You are not I see faults in people. I know what they have done wrong. Do you want to know your fault, Xerxes? You are very trusting. You say that I am being used. You, my friend, are being used.
By you.
I am the father of lies. You are being lied to. And not by any god. You look out into the room and you see the Lord of the Hells goes, is that it out there? That's the world?
Yes, it is.
What part of Alexandria are we in? Maybe it's all changed since the last time I was there. I don't know.
I won't lie to you. It's called Avalier.
Avalier. Flying over Dominus, yes?
Yes.
Is Dominus still beautiful?
Parts of it, yes. Aspects of it.
I always said we were supposed to take credit for it all equally. Dominus was my favorite. But I always said, on the face of Alexandria, Dominus was the smile. It truly is. It is. There is nothing like it.
I have to leave you. I'm going back.
What became of Evandrin?
I don't quite know. Some sort of illness that was beyond my reach took him. The vision I had with you showed him walking towards a tree.
There are some less than kind workings of magic on some trees of old.
He was spitting up something that became intangible. And I felt him sort of fading when I picked him up, desperately trying to find some sort of a cure that was nowhere to be found. It wasn't from anything from this world that I could understand. Nobody could help. Why was he in the dream?
Connection. His spirit was somehow near. I don't know how to describe it. Did you ever try, after his passing, to bring him back?
I tried to stop it from happening. And I never found him, really, when he passed. But I did everything I could to stop it.
Great and many are the powers of mortals to stop poisons, diseases, afflictions, and curses.
I know. Nobody would help. I know that city had some way of bringing him back. How could they not?
There are few you can trust. Very few. I don't know much. I have been away for quite some time, but of my domain I am certain. I am the father of lies, and there are many lies in the city you call home.
I don't call this city home.
The Lord of the Hells feels the impact of that. He looks at you and you have done me a great service and you have given me your trust, but I understand that mortals will always have a part of their soul that recoils from me. It is the nature of the gifts I gave them.
Then you made me wrong.
He puts a hand on your shoulder and interrupts your casting of atonement. And instead casts a spell on you and puts a protection from evil and good on you. That will protect you from myself, from Celestials, from Fae.
Thank you.
You see, he, you see,
You take it back.
and I just want to, you see that, he says, time for that will come later. And you have work in Alexandria, in the mortal realm. I am trapped in a space in between. Something... There's a poison. There is a poison in your city. And I think you know the shape of it.
I give him a nod. As I just innately just start to feel like my time here is up. I start to step away from him and I walk towards the portal. And as I start to step through it, I turn around and I say to him, "Come find me." And I go through.
The stars are leaving us. Our hands cannot reach, the limbs of the tree can no longer scribe the name of our deliverance. We will soon be as broken as our promises. Avalier shall fall, all shall fall. And from our folly will the hands that forged the world banish themselves from the broken things they have made. This was deemed false.
Yes.
In that,
we spoke to a member of the Octothurge, and we delivered it and said this is the prophecy, and the Guildmaster of the Guild of Divination decreed that it was false. Because it obviously can't be true.